What's going on, you guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Charlotte Hendricks. I'm a graphic designer and a content creator. Basically make videos about graphic design and my life as a creative person. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about 5 different steps to designing your own personal brand and why designing a personal brand is even important in the first place. So let's get started. Before we jump into the 5 steps of designing your personal brand, I want to explain why it's important to have a brand in the first place. When it comes to your personal brand and what you're trying to do, totally up to you. For this video specifically, I'm going to use fitness and personal training kind of as an example, just because that's kind of what I did before my full-time graphic design job. I kind of built a personal brand through fitness and just kind of stuck with it and ran with it. And when it comes to fitness, I think it's a great example because there's tons of different ways you can go about your brand for living a healthy lifestyle. So there's that tough, gritty, do the work kind of vibe, and then there's the more welcoming community and everything in between. So there's a bunch of different ways you can go about it. The reason why it is so important to build a brand identity is because that is the first thing that your customers are going to see. It's not just the way it looks, not just about looking cool. It's giving your customers a feeling and showing them what to expect out of your brand. You are already very familiar with your brand, so you know what you're all about. You know what you're trying to present, but your customers don't know that yet, so you still have to build that trust with them and immediately let them know what you're all about and what you're trying to do and how you can help them. So it's really important that you, in every way possible, present that feeling to them right off the bat. And not even just right away, but consistently throughout the whole process of you actually helping with whatever it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the 5 steps of designing your own personal brand. There's a lot of steps that go into actually having a personal brand, but I know that a lot of people get very overwhelmed when it comes to actually designing and creating their brand, which is understandable because as somebody who's building a personal brand, you are doing a little bit of everything, and there's people who literally specialize in graphic design who create brand identities. So I wouldn't expect you to know exactly how to do it right away, but hopefully these 5 tips can reduce some of that anxiety when it comes to designing and creating your personal brand. Step 1, decide what your message is all about. This may seem totally off topic when it comes to actually designing your brand, but it is super important to know what your brand is all about and how you want to represent yourself. So if you want to be this tough, gritty, get your shit done kind of brand, then it's going to look very different than this more welcoming, inclusive fitness brand. Deciding what the point of your brand is going to be huge, and it's going to introduce different types of people into your brand. Step number 2, come up with a list of words to describe yourself and your brand. If this is too difficult for you to do, try to get one of your closest friends or family members to write down a list of words that describe you. This list will kind of help you narrow down exactly what you are all about, what your brand is all about, and help you come up with visuals later on. So now that you have your overall message and words to describe you, number 3, decide who your target audience is. And this is super important, and having your overall message and the words that describe you will really kind of help you narrow down who your target audience is going to be. And this is super important. You do want to have a target audience because if you try to market towards everybody, nobody's going to really fall in love with your brand. So I don't know if you've ever heard, if everything is important, nothing is important. It kind of goes the same way with marketing yourself towards certain people. If you try to market towards everybody and just be a people pleaser across the board, nobody is really going to connect with you as a person and as a brand. So you really want to figure out what that niche is and start marketing towards that and visually representing that. Your graphics will be able to attract the people that you are marketing towards. So the first 3 steps are really just trying to nail down your brand and exactly what you want to get out of your brand. This is super important for any type of brand design, just because you have to know these 3 things before you actually start designing. It's super important. You can't just start designing and hoping something fits. You have to know what you're designing for so that you can design more with a purpose in mind. But that being said, number 4 is to start designing. And the 4 things you're really going to need is a logo, typography, your brand elements, and colors. So, and I would go in that actual order. starting with your logo. Okay, main tips when it comes to your logo. Don't feel like your logo needs to describe everything about your brand. It should basically just be a symbol representing your style and what you do. So it doesn't have to describe literally everything. It can be super simple. Just try not to overthink your logo. I know it is super important. It's the first thing that everybody sees, but I also have seen lots and lots of interesting logos that try to visually represent every single thing that your business does. If you take Nike, for example, they don't have a shoe in their logo. Kind of like if you're building a fitness brand, you don't necessarily need a dumbbell or a barbell or a kettlebell in your logo. It can just be your initials even. I mean, my logo is literally just a CH in a square. That's it. So if your brand is literally just your name, maybe even just do a monogram or something like that. It should be something super simple that can be blown up to be really big or shrunken down to be teeny tiny and people can still make out what it is. That is key when making a logo. The reason why I would put logo first when it comes to actually just starting to design everything is because it is way easier to find typography that fits a logo rather than having typography and trying to create a logo that goes with that. So I would highly recommend doing your logo first and then finding typography that fits with your logo. Which brings me on to the next thing, typography. When it comes to typography, make sure that you are referring back to your first 3 steps in creating your brand. So what message do you want to get across, what words describe you, and who is your target audience. The reason why that is so important when it comes to typography is because typography will say a lot about your brand no matter what the actual word says. Going back to if you're trying to be this tough, gritty fitness company, you might want to use a more bold typography, whereas if you're trying to be a more inclusive, welcoming community, you might use a lighter, more airy type. So those 2 things specifically will have a major impact on the feeling that your customers get just by choosing different typography. Another really good pointer that I don't want to forget is that when it comes to typography, you are more than likely going to want more than one font for your brand. So in order to find a good pairing, there's a lot of font pairing websites out there that will actually find good fonts that go well together. Number 3, when it comes to actually designing, is having brand elements. Brand elements is basically just other pieces of your brand that aren't necessarily typography or your logo or colors. This is really where you can make your brand more unique. It can be something like textures or just hand-drawn elements. Brand elements are basically just little details here and there that can make your brand really stand out from other brands. Just have some fun with it and make it your own. Last but not least, when it comes to actually designing your brand, is picking your colors. It is so easy for us to just jump into colors right away and overlook everything else, but I promise you, colors can have a huge impact on your final design and your final brand identity. So it's so important to really nail down your type and your logo and your brand elements first and kind of get a feel. Make sure that you still get the feel of your brand identity in black and white, and then add colors. You don't need a ton of different colors. I honestly use 2 or 3 colors more than anything. And yes, I do recommend having your colors last just so that you can build out your whole entire brand before adding the colors so you can see it fully in black and white, and then add colors to really emphasize the brand that you've built. Okay, now that you have your brand kind of built out and ready to go, step number 5, make sure you use your branding. I've seen so many people just try to make the craziest graphics they can for certain little templates or whatever it may be, because to them it stands out. But if you keep changing up your branding and your designs, you're going to lose trust from your followers and from your customers. So the more that you use your specific branding, the more that they will recognize that branding and the more loyal they will become to your brand. Seems like a really simple thing to keep on using the same fonts and colors and everything over and over, but I promise you, you are the only one who is going to see every single one of your designs. Your customers are not going to get tired of your branding. But that's why it's really important to, on the front end, really make sure that your brand is something that you're proud of and something that you're excited to use, because you'll be using it a lot. It's really, really important to really just nail down your brand, what you want to get out of your brand, and how to visually represent what you want to get out of your brand. Try to make your brand fun, try to make it unique, try to make it special to you, because that's what's going to make you really stand out. Not every single individual graphic that you make has to be this crazy elaborate graphic, but just make your branding unique to you and make it stand out on its own, so that any template or any graphic that you make, it just stands out and it's something different that nobody has seen. It's hard, I know, but just remember, you only have to do this one time. It's not something that you have to recreate every time you make a graphic or every time you have some release or whatever it may be. Sit down, nail down what you want your brand to look like, how you want to be perceived, what you want your reputation to be from your customers, from your followers, and then really move forward from there, because once you have it nailed down, once you're proud of your designs, you'll be more excited to actually use those designs and keep it consistent. And then you'll really build your reputation a lot faster with your customers. So hopefully that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, of course, let me know. I'm more than happy to help when it comes to anything design. I'm excited to start seeing all of your personal brands and what you guys do with them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!